Roger, you good? Yep. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 20th meeting of the East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors. Tonight's meeting has been advertised to be held in person and on Zoom, online using Zoom, with login and call-in information posted on our website. The meeting will be conducted by the chairman, who will be assisted by an employee managing the Zoom site. Tonight's video and audio is being recorded, and Robert's rules apply. To offer comment, you must be recognized by the chairman. For meeting participants on Zoom, please use the chat function to be recognized. Text your name and address to the moderator. Your request to speak will then be passed on by staff to the chairman to be recognized. Once recognized by the chairman, unmute your microphone. After speaking, please mute your microphone. East Hempfield Township public comment rules will apply for all public comment. You must be a resident or business owner in the township to speak. You must identify yourself by name and address before speaking and sign the guest log for meeting minute purposes, or follow the chat procedure previously discussed for Zoom attendance. Individual comment is limited to 3 minutes and must be about the agenda item being discussed, with the exception of public comment when non-agenda items can be addressed. No action will be taken on a non-agenda item of a non-emergency nature during the public comment period for non-agenda items. We now will move on to our first agenda item. Please join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next agenda item for consideration this evening is our consent agenda. The consent agenda addresses the approval of routine and repetitive business matters intended to need little or no review, discussion, or deliberation. Consent agenda items are provided to all board members for review in advance of our meeting. Is there any comment on the consent agenda from the board this evening?
I'll be abstaining on item number 2.
Thank you. Any comment from the audience? Okay. At this point then, I'll hear a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through F as presented.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Brubaker. Motion from Mr. Russell, a second from Mr. Brubaker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. On the motion to approve, I hear a motion to approve item G on the consent agenda, invoices as presented.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Johnson, do I hear a second?
So.
Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. It appears that Mr. Russell and Mr. Brubaker both will be abstaining. Is there a
That
reason
would be
why?
correct, yes, because of invoices.
Oh, I must have missed that one.
Yes, you
I
have
looked.
MPE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I looked. I didn't see that. Okay.
I just want to be clear about that. Okay, so listen,
There.
so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Okay. Next up, we have a sketch plan for 2124 Ambassador Circle. We have a representative here tonight.
Good evening, Chris Benarchik with RGS Associates. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for the sketch plan that was submitted to the township. I'd like to just give some brief background on the project and then go into the proposal that we have before you, and then also the associated modification. Yeah, there you go. You have the rendering that's up on the screen there shows the project site to get you familiar with it. As pointed out, it is 2124 Ambassador Circle. It is about a 3.2 acre site. It is in the RCC Regional Commerce Center Zone. where we are looking to propose an addition, like essentially a redevelopment onto the existing property. So as you're looking at the plan there on the east side or the right is the existing River Rock Academy. And then to the west is what we're proposing for the redevelopment. So right now, if you're familiar with the property, it's essentially an underutilized parcel. The River Rock Academy to the west there is just an open area of asphalt parking that is rarely ever used to its full capacity. So there's an opportunity, rather than trying to do a development on a raw piece of ground in the township, we saw the opportunity here to take advantage of an underutilized property to introduce a proposed daycare in the western edge there of the property. So what's shown there in the building, the building is about 11,300 square foot facility, and the associated reconfiguration of parking. And then also on the southwest corner would be an open area where there's an outdoor classroom, and then just in general, an active area for the students. There'd be about 116 parking spaces in total, serving both uses in the proposed configuration. The property would continue to be served by LASA for sewer, as well as the city for water. As far as stormwater management goes, the plan that you see up there ends up being a reduction in impervious area from what's out there today. But we would still anticipate, collection and conveyance of stormwater, and then if need be, probably a small facility underground before ultimately discharging from the property. Because of the scale of the project, we do not anticipate needing an NPDS permit. We believe the disturbance will come in under 1 acre. To implement the plan, we looked at the modification that was before the waiver for a preliminary plan. And the reason for that is really there is no phasing with this project. There's no subdivision proposed as part of this project. We would continue to utilize the existing driveway that serves the property today. And certainly, again, it's not any type of phasing. I think I mentioned that. So the preliminary plan and the final plan would essentially be the same. So again, the purpose of why we're here this evening is, one, as I've done, introduce the project, get some feedback from the board of supervisors. If we're successful in moving forward, we move into the land development stage, and we'll be back before you at that time. But at this point, we again want to get any input from the board and then action on the request to waive the preliminary plan.
Any questions from the board?
Probably just a comment. So this is basically just a redevelopment of an existing site and new impervious.
Correct.
No NPDS. And the reason I'm asking that is I would actually entertain waiving land development and making this a stormwater plan and building permit plan. So just a thought process. We've done that before with some other projects where it's just a little bit urban redevelopment of a completely impervious site. And those two processes would control. So just throwing that out there for some discussion.
So that was land development.
Entirely. I think we need to have a check on that before we would take action on that. I think we just recommend we do the
Okay.
preliminary plan discussion tonight, but I think I would entertain in 2 weeks or so, unless there's a legal reason not to, for potentially waiving land development entirely, like we did with Nook Sports and a couple others that were much greater scale than this.
Mr. Surge is the director of planning, wants to speak.
Yep. I see no issue with going the route that you're mentioning, Mr. Russell.
Okay, I appreciate it. But maybe we still have a pause because that was what was being asked tonight. I'm just throwing it out there that maybe at next meeting, we could just do that with the land, with the stormwater plan process and the building permit process.
I appreciate the feedback. That's helpful. I think we agree. I think the scale of the project, the scope is minimal. And I believe it would be appropriate, like in a typical stormwater management plan, you probably would not get into sewer or water planning. In this case, we would do that for the new use or demand on the property, but we can certainly make that part of the application to supplement the stormwater management plan. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's just my thoughts. Like I said, we've done it for bigger projects than this.
Awesome. Thank you.
That'd be fun. That is well.
Yeah. All right, anything else from the board? Anything from the audience? Any comment from the audience on this this plan? Anything really on Zoom?
No.
Okay. So I think we got a good plan here, good opportunity for the township. So on the issue of a motion to approve a waiver of preliminary plan requirements for the 21-24 Ambassador Circle Project Township File 24-16.01, subject to all staff and engineering comments, I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Russell, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Brubaker, motion from Mr. Russell, second from Mr. Brubaker, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you for your time.
Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, next up, we have Leeser Lumber final plan.
Good evening. My name is Mark Brecky. I'm with Pentair Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Lesser Lumber. We have a final lot add-on and land development plan for, I guess, consideration tonight for approval. It's an existing facility that's about 7.7 acres right now, and we are looking to add two. It's technically two lots, but it's one, it operates as one former residential property. It's about a half acre in size, and you can see it on the, maybe that's not the right thing. Yeah. Anyway, it's the two lots there that you see hatched. Those would be the elimination of the lot lines, and that parcel would be added for a total of 8.23 acres. If someone could flip to the next sheet. And the true purpose of this is to add some additional parking spaces on the site. Currently, we have 57 parking spaces. This is the addition of 35 more spaces, although we did displace some spaces that were striped along the side, and also where that proposed 3,000 square foot addition is shown. That particular addition is just a storage, we call it open storage. It's not conditioned space, it's just to put and house lumber and various building products. If you're not familiar, it operates as a lumber yard. That's its primary business. The existing residential structure is shown to be repurposed as office. Right now, it's not being actively repurposed, but that's what we're showing on the plan. We're not tearing it down. In that, we gain, I believe, 16 spaces to take us up to 73 total spaces with the plan. We do have a pretty large stormwater facility we have under there, but essentially it's buried under the parking lot. You don't see it. It connects to the existing inlet that's on the site, and that inlet discharges to the basin that's on that large residential, I guess it's a retirement community below us. So unless there's any specific plans on what we're proposing, with that, I can review the 4 deferrals / modifications that we have for request as well. Is that all right?
Yeah, why don't you do that, yeah.
Sure. The first one relates to sidewalks as they relate to Good Drive. If you see on, you have to go back a slide, but our principal access is from Good Drive. We do have Church Street that is an alley that operates kind of along the backside of the property, but our principal front yard and our primary access is from Good Drive. And so the deferral for sidewalks is along, or the request is for that along Good Drive. The sidewalks currently end pretty much at the end of the property that is below us. Right at that point, that kind of triangular piece there, right at the corner, bottom corner of that property line. We agree to provide the grading exhibit along with the deferral. So at some point in time, if they need to be added, they could be added from the plan. There are no sidewalks further north along Good Drive. We went through that with the planning commission last week. So that's the first request is for a deferral of sidewalk as it relates to Good Drive. The second request, did you want to just go over them or do them individually?
Do them individually, if you don't mind.
Sure. So that was the first request for the deferral of sidewalk along Good Drive. I will say that it is related to the third request, which is, it's a similar, I guess, waiver or deferral from the specifications and standards ordinance that you have. It's a different section, it's section 222-6.6.b, but it's essentially the same request. If you wanted to act on those two at the same time, that might make, it more efficient.
That's 1 and 1 and 3, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, when we get to motions, that's exactly what we'll do.
Okay. As far as the second waiver then goes, it's sections 265-8.7, believe I-2D. That's regarding shade trees and planting islands. And if you look at if someone could go to the landscape plan exhibit. I don't know if we have that. But that would illustrate, currently the stormwater management, is under the planting islands that are out in that lower parking lot. If you go to the next sheet, I think that shows the landscape. There you go. So the upper parking lot, we have the islands, that's not a problem. It's the lower one where we have that you see that large rectangle, it's got gravel shaded in it, that's our underground stormwater management bed. So we're proposing to add 3 trees along the left-hand side between us and the adjacent property. So we're not eliminating the trees, we're just not placing them in the parking lot because I'm pretty sure they won't survive. We could probably plant them there, but they won't survive. So
And I assume you're creating a little bit better buffer between you and the resident.
it does provide a better, in my opinion, provide a better visual buffer for that particular neighbor and that particular use. When you get into the guts of our site, it's pretty much paved tip to tail. So it would be more, I think, of service in the location proposed as well.
Okay.
The fourth regards to stormwater management ordinance, section 260-24C, parens 1, parens A, bracket 4. This is regarding minimum pipe diameter size of 15 inches. This is largely as it relates to the stormwater management facility in the bed. We have a very shallow bed, it's about 1.5 feet deep. So we can't bury a 15-inch distribution pipe in that bed, it simply won't fit. So what we're proposing is 8-inch distribution pipe within the bed. The inlets that collect the drainage in the bed here, they're in those 2 lower islands. They discharge directly into the stone bed. There is no real conveyance. It's straight into the bed and then it's just distributing pipe around the bed. So the discharge pipe you see coming out to that manhole, that circular structure, and then the pipe that's headed to the left going to the existing inlet, that all would be 15-inch pipe. So it's not the discharge pipe and our actual conveyance pipe, it's just what I would call the distribution pipe that you see wrapping inside that bed that we're proposing to do 8-inch pipe with. I believe David Miller recommends granting all of those requests, with the exception of providing that grading exhibit for the sidewalk.
All right, any questions on modifications from anyone on the board?
Doesn't seem very routine.
No. Anything from the audience? Okay. Okay, hearing none, I'll hear a motion to approve modifications 2 and 4 and conditional approvals of requests 1 and 3 for Lesser Lumber Project Township File 24-08.02, subject to all staff and engineering comments. Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth. Do I hear a second? Second. second from Mr. Johnson. Motion from Mr. Wigglesworth, second from Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And then on the final plan, any comments from the board?
Just glad to see that they're continuing to expand.
Absolutely.
We're glad to hear that. There is one other item that we probably should discuss under zoning two,
Okay.
which is related to the parking requirements. As I understand it, we submitted the ITE parking generation for the building in Lumberyard, land use code 812. That's based on basically the roofed areas that you have on site. And so when we put in our 67,000 square feet of roofed area that we have, believe it or not, it generated an 85th percentile of 50 spaces that are required for that amount of use. Your ordinance has a provision that you're not allowed to provide more than 125% of that 85th percentile calculation by the ITE, which ours is at 146% with the 73 parking spaces. Our position is that if you really look at an aerial photo, we have a lot of material that's not under roof. It still operates the same as if it was under a roof. So if all those areas were roofed as well, our parking demand would go up. And I think that the 146 over the 125 is, it's not that much of an ask. And in addition, I did ask Mike Fiassi, who is the manager of this particular location, how many employees they have. And these aren't on one shift at any time, but between, I think, full-time and part-time, they have about 70 employees. So I think that the 73 spaces is not too much of a stretch because we still have customers that are coming and visiting as well. But there's a reason that that they are pursuing more parking, and that's because they feel they have the need for it. And I would ask that the board consider granting the necessary relief needed to allow the 73 spaces. And then with that, that's all my asks.
Okay.
So,
Any comment? Yes.
Sounds like he just made a motion with how he just described
Yeah,
that.
that was pretty good.
That was actually pretty good. If you want to word it all word for you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we make a motion to allow this project to exceed the 125% threshold as discussed in tonight's meeting for parking requirements.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Russell on parking requirements for this project. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second from Mr. Brubaker. Do we have any discussion from the board or the audience about what we're doing here? Okay, all right. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes 5-0. And then on the final plan, a motion to approve final land development plan for Lesser Lumber Project, Township File 24-08.02, subject to all staff and engineering comments. I hear a motion. Motion from Mr. Bennett. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wigglesworth. Motion from Mr. Bennett, a second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for expanding in East Hempfield. So Conestoga Creek Blue Green Corridor Trail. Mr. Schultz,
Here I am again.
good to see you.
Put up the map.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Schultz, and on behalf of the Steinman Foundation and the Little Conestoga Creek Foundation, I'm the project manager for the Little Conestoga Creek Blue Green Corridor Project. I started appearing before this East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors back in 2019. Here I am again. I have to appear before you about 6 times over the past 5 years to ask for your support and your assistance for this project. I want to thank this board for its help over those years. What we're going to be talking about is a stream improvement area where we're going to do stream improvements. But the green that you're seeing highlighted here is what we're going to talk about specifically tonight, which includes 4-mile trail, bicycle and walking trail, that also walk to Dorwood Park. So the overall project is a combination of stream restoration and improvements along a 3.5-mile stretch of the Little Conestoga Creek from Marietta Avenue in the south to Swar Run in the north. In addition, there will be a 4-mile fully accessible ADA trail that will include a section that will connect to Dorwood Park as the primary trailhead for this project. There will be a total of 3 trailheads, and Dorwood Park will be the largest and most comprehensive. We're here tonight to ask the township to be the applicant for a $1 million request to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, otherwise known as DCED. These funds, known as the Local Share Account Program, would be used as part of the overall cost of the second segment of the trail, which is what is green highlighted. So the first segment is going to be Good Drive. And what we're going to do, that's going to be started next year. The segment we're talking about tonight is what's green highlighted, including the section up to Dorwood Park. So the overall cost of this segment of the trail is approximately $5.5 million. Of that amount, the foundation has raised $3.35 million from a variety of public and private sources. For example, we received a commitment of $1,900,000 from the Pennsylvania RACP program and $500,000 from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, otherwise known as DCNR. We've received approximately $900,000 from local foundations and private entities. That leaves us about $2 million short of the funds that we need to start and complete this construction of the second segment of the trail. So the $1 million that we are seeking from the Pennsylvania DCED will help us reduce the balance to approximately $1 million, and we feel confident we can raise that additional $1 million. In order to apply for these Pennsylvania DCED funds, we, the foundation, are not an eligible applicant. We need a municipal government to be the applicant. If we are successful, we will work with your staff, as we've done in the past, and your solicitor, to have all the contractual arrangements in place so that the foundation would be responsible for the use of the funds to construct the trail. So I would request the East Hempfield Township Board of Supervisors to take necessary public actions tonight to be the applicant for the $1 million in Pennsylvania DCED funding for the trail for the blue-green second segment of the project. I'm prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Schultz, yeah, thank you for coming, and I'm really excited about seeing additional progress with this. This is yeah, it's an exciting thing, and I think it'll be used very significantly, given the number of people that are at the Dorwood Park now in that area. So my question would be, the other funds that you have lined up for this project, are there any restrictions or regular requirements for completion dates? Are there issues with completion time?
The RACP funding, no. RACP funding, we have pretty much unlimited. We tell them when we're going to get started and finished, and that's fine. So there's really no restriction there. From the DCNR funding, yeah, we have about a 3-year restriction. We need to get started and completed in about 3 years.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what yeah, what the timeline was for getting this thing going before you lose any funding.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Just my only comment is, obviously, I've been with you from the first day, and I appreciate everything you guys have been doing, and I appreciate that you guys have really stayed true to your word with just we were going to seek funding sources. And not make it a burden on the 4 townships, municipalities that are participating in the city, so I really appreciate that. As you guys have really done a bang up job at being true to your word and delivering on promises made, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've been very, very helpful. We got $550,000 that we would have not received if it wouldn't have been for the township applying for monies through the county through federal transportation funding. So we received that. So that doesn't, that 3.35 million doesn't even include that. So we have that, and we're going to start that in 2026.
Yeah, and question, for this whole project, what percentage are you completed?
So there's 6 segments for the stream restoration. So the one segment is Bar Crest, that's done. So if you go over to the Marietta Bridge, you'll see that one segment's done. Second segment is what we call Mennonite Home, and that is basically 99% done. In other words, if you go over there right now, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that's been done. We can't plant or plug in shrubs and things like that until next spring. So that next spring, that will be the second segment done. Third segment, you'll see, as a matter of fact, if you go over right now, you'll see some cleanup being done because we're going to work at the Conestoga House now. So there's like 3 different parcels there along Conestoga House that will be done in the spring of next year, between now and spring of next year. So that'll be 3 out of the 6 segments. The other 3 segments, we have funding for the one, that's what we call the F&M segment that we started in the end of 2025. And then the other 2 segments are the biggest segments, which are Woodcrest and also Strider Station. That's probably going to be started in 2026. So those are the 6 stream restoration segments. The 3 trail areas, actually, I guess it'd be actually called 4. So you have the one that we're going to start this spring, which is up in Good Drive in West Roseville Road area. That will start next spring. Hopefully this one will start 2026. We've got deadline that we talked about before. You have the third one, which is Shriner Station, which we have the funding for. The only one we don't have official funding for, though we have verbal commitment for, is basically the segment between Route 30 and Shriner Station. So that's the only segment that we don't have this money for.
Right.
So we'd like to get this thing done before I die. So the situation is that I think we're looking at probably 2026, 27, 2027 is probably realistic deadline.
Okay, well, hopefully you live a long time and
Yeah,
enjoy it for a long time.
yeah. I am getting old.
Thank you, okay, sounds good.
Just, thank you. Yes, thank you. Just a comment, the township's been an applicant with you on other grants, correct?
Yes, that's what I mentioned before. We actually received $550,000 because you guys had to be the applicant. We couldn't be the applicant
Right.
on that segment, so we got $550 because you guys were the applicant.
On your rack sheet is, we weren't
You're
part of
not
that.
the applicant, there we are.
Okay, good, well, as someone who drives Marietta Avenue quite often, I see all the good work that you've done there down around Barcrest. Really a great project, and we're privileged to work on the project with you on your behalf.
Well, we wouldn't be here
Thanks for all you
today
do.
if it would be for you guys, to tell you the truth. It's bottom line.
Thank you. So with that, any comment from the audience? Hearing none, then I'll hear a motion to authorize the submission of a local share account grant for the second trail segment of the Little Conestoga Creek Blue Green Corridor Trail and the associated resolution number 2024-23.
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Brubaker. Motion for Mr. Johnson, a second for Mr. Brubaker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Next up, we have a motion on behalf of the East Hempfield Police.
Completed an application for the state's local share account, which needs a resolution from the board for final submission of the grant. I submitted for $90,000 to pay for radios that we had budgeted for, but didn't quite make this year's budget, that the police department will need as of now, for January of 2027.
Sounds good. Any questions from the board?
Got other townships doing the same thing, so hopefully all these get looked on favorably at this point.
I haven't heard of it. You're saying other,
I know Penn Township has actually I just was with the manager today, and he said, he's a local share, I was like, oh, I don't know, we're kind of doing the same thing. So, it's, we'll give it a try and see what happens.
that's right.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the audience? All right, hearing none, then I'll hear a motion to authorize the submission of a local share account grant for the radio equipment and the adoption of the associated resolution number 2024-24.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Brubaker, a second from Mr. Wigglesworth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes 5-0. Have old business. Anything additional on our proposed budget? Kick this along pretty well, I think. So the next step is,
It'll be on your action agenda for December 4th.
okay,
It's currently under public review.
action item, December. Very good. Next up, any new business tonight?
I got one just as a plug. I was reading the merchandiser today, and I liked the Hempfield Police Department being on the front page. Yeah, the Beards and Brothers.
No, it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there was a very nice article explaining how it got started, and it's very well done.
Excellent. I look forward to looking for it.
So, thank you.
Good. Very good. Next up, traffic commission report. We had a traffic commission report at 6 p.m. tonight. Discussed were the installation of a truck parking signage on Embassy Drive, street lighting addition at Marietta and Oakwood Street, and then some no parking signs at a T intersection. That we actually put that on hold. We tabled that item for the next meeting. We had a traffic report from the chief. We had a rather lengthy discussion about traffic and speed on Running Pump Road. And we're gonna look into perhaps some electronic signage and perhaps even speed tables, installation of speed tables. And then finally, we noted that we made some stop sign adjustments at Tulane and Wilson on behalf of the Quaker Church there. Anything else? No, I think we got it all. So moving on to public comment. Public comment this evening from the audience. So,
good evening, gentlemen. My name is Steve Graham. I live at 2998 Hearthside Lane, which is along Mistley Road. The reason I'm here tonight is to express my concern, dissatisfaction, frustration with a project that is now underway right across the street from where I live. I believe it was about 2 weeks ago that the crews began to tear down a lot of trees. essentially wiped out the whole area of all vegetation. Incidentally, probably disrupted some wildlife along the way. So I have two major concerns. Number one is the lack of communication that I feel that local residents have received about this project. I knew very little about it before the work was begun. I'd like to better understand why a drainage basin, a stormwater basin is necessary in this area. And number two, the process that will be used to make this project complete. As I said, all the trees and vegetation have been wiped out. I don't know how many acres are there, but it's a very large area, as you know. The second thing I'm concerned about is, from what I've learned, is that no environmental folks, no ecologists were involved were consulted for this project, which I find to be astounding, given the scope of the project and all the vegetation that's been removed. So the question I'd like to leave with you all tonight is, what can you do to prevent something like this from happening again? I would suggest letting local residents know far ahead of time, so there can be an open discussion about this, and also to involve someone on the environmental side to get their opinion. So thank you for your time tonight.
Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Joni Houck and I live at 2994 Hearthside Lane. And I agree with everything that Steve Graham said. And I also have some additional comments. So several years ago, I appeared before the Recreation Commission to plead with them to be judicious about the trees that were being removed from the golf course. So there were trees removed from the golf course. It appeared for no reason. And they were healthy trees. So I stand here now devastated by the needless removal of trees for the Nisley Road Basin project. We as a community feel that Hempfield officials do not have any regard or thought to all the good that trees will do for the environment and habitat. An example is the removal of the row of evergreen trees along the community gardens. There were 6 mature evergreens there that came down. They were on the edge of this basin project and didn't seem like they would impact it at all. They provided shade in the summer from the brutal heat this past year for the gardeners to go and fill water containers and to take a break and talk with each other. They have all been removed, so there is going to be no shade whatsoever in that area. Evergreens are excellent for the environment. They provide oxygen and they reduce carbon monoxide. But more importantly, evergreens are efficient at retaining water. Mature evergreens can absorb 4,000 gallons of water per year. Take that times 6 mature evergreens and that's 24,000 gallons of water. It seems counterproductive to be over budget on a project to collect water when you had a row of evergreens that could help with that. Not to mention the wildlife that has been disturbed, not only by the evergreens, but the other trees. But most devastating was the removal of the 100-year-old tree that was out by the road. It was a beautiful tree, and there is no way that that could have impacted the basin because it's out by the road. So it was probably put in there when that house was built way back that had been removed. So what I'm asking and imploring you to do is to think about the environment when you make decisions on land in East Hempfield Township. And just as an aside, as I was reading back through the minutes to find out, should we have known about this project and all the tree removals? I read about 3952 Columbia Avenue, which has been approved for, I believe, storage units and maybe condos. And that property was Muchler's tree farm. And so there's going to be hundreds of trees that are removed for that property, losing all the value of those trees to prevent pollution and other things. So all I'm asking is just to please think about the environment and trees and habitat that we have in East Hempfield Township. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comment and thank you for your concern. I don't know exactly what the criteria was for what trees were removed and why they were removed. I would say that we don't typically remove trees that we don't have to remove for a project. That we do take that into consideration. I can tell you that the stormwater project that we're doing there is needed and very much in the community for many residents' benefits. So while I do understand your concern, hopefully the stormwater basin that goes in there will alleviate some significant flooding that we have there. I can't get into the technical side of this right now, but we'll get you an answer as to what we were looking at, why things were done the way they were done, and we'll get some communication back to you on all of this.
And I would just also add, in fairness, I think East Hempfield has been, over the years, I'll stack our record up to any township as far as the environment, as far as parks, as far as preserving open space. I feel like we've done a very good job. We very much take into consideration what we're doing. At great expense, we maintained a golf course so that wouldn't be developed over the years. It's finally turned to the point that it will last long into the future and not be a burden to the township. So we've done a lot of good things. We might not be perfect and everything might not, go your way all the time. But I do think if you take a holistic look at what we have done, we've tried to be good stewards of the resources that we've been given. And, we very much do care about those things.
Just a little bit more background too, there actually was a number of meetings a while ago now. In 2011, when Tropical Storm Lee hit, the Mill Creek development had the worst flooding in the township. Significant flooding damage, about 40 basements had to get pumped out, which is all downstream of this. So this basin has been in their planning for a number of years. We just had issues with funding. We finally got funding in place. So this is a 13-year project. So sometimes when a project goes that long, with new sets of eyes, and people that were around when the original decisions were made are no longer around at this point. But that it was driven, and it is driven by purely environmental purposes. It's not a development or something like this. This is addressing past developments that were built before there ever was stormwater regulations. And there's a significant amount of water that flows downhill from this area down into Mill Creek and then runs into the tributary that goes to the Swar Run. And that water, with this basin, will control a lot of erosion and other environmental impacts that would be occurring. So there's a big environmental component to this. This again was not driven by land development. This was to address land development from the 1980s. That basically all the properties that were built up on that hill, there was absolutely no land, there was no stormwater management at the time. So this is an attempt to start kind of rectifying those wrongs. So we did have an environmental purpose when we did this, as well as trying to reduce damage to people's properties. So that's some of the background that it goes back that far.
And Mr. Russell, I appreciate that.
You'll have to go to the microphone for the people.
Oh, sure, no problem. So I appreciate the background on that. Thank you. My concern is, I think, and I obviously never saw the original plans, but a more strategic approach could have been taken to try to preserve as much of the trees and vegetation in that area. Having lived, since I live right across the street, when we get a heavy storm, I see the golf course is flooded. So I don't object to a stormwater basin concept. It just seems to me that more could have been done to try to preserve some of the environment there and accomplish both goals.
Thank you. We try. We're not perfect, but we did try.
Right, okay.
And I just wanted you to know that there was an environmental purpose behind it. It wasn't, this wasn't just a developer's basin or something that was going on, or for development. This actually was an attempt to try and fix some environmental problems, in particular flooding problems that were occurring. Right. That was the intent behind it.
Thank Thank you for the input, we appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay, anything else from a public comment standpoint this evening? Okay, hearing none, how about a manager's report, please?
So Centerville Road continues, no issues that I'm aware of, won't be complete until 2025 in September. The old Rosetown Road Bridge, I keep saying it's gonna be finished, and we have now scheduled a final, meeting, which will be held, the first week in December.
Yay,
We're getting,
better late than never.
yeah. The Farmingdale Road, I'm still waiting for that grant reimbursement. Everything has been submitted. In fact, the person I dealt with inquired if we had gotten it yet, so it's just a matter of time. That should be in before the end of the year. The zoning hearing board ability challenge for the Colebrook, project is December 19th, is the next meeting. There was none for November. The 72 Lidditz Road, I'm still waiting for the bid specifications from the engineer and working on right of way from the, property owner in that area. The Herb Park Phase 2, the work on the bocce court is down to a few punch list items, and the parking lot on the far side is in full swing and under construction. Noldora Park, they may still in final design. We did have a meeting with the Blue Green Group, which you spoke to Mr. Schultz this evening. That is a major trailhead for the project, and we might be moving that up to 2025 rather than 2026 for their benefits. And we have money in place to do that. I also want to, if you want to bring up that map that's in there, the Lancaster County Plan Commission, Mr. Sturgis and I were at a meeting with them. And I wanted to bring this to your attention. We have what's called an urban growth boundary. And Lancaster County Planning Commission is looking at those. They're over 20 years old. And there were two areas in the township that they had suggested we might possibly want to expand our urban growth boundary, which is on the north side of 283. And I conveyed our concern about that and said, no, we weren't interested, but I felt you should be made aware. So the two areas were, and they're already developed. It's the Chadwick development, which really was developed outside of the urban growth boundary, and the Bent Creek area, which is the backside of Bent Creek. So those are both fully developed, but I told them that we do not want to change our growth boundary by adding those two areas in, even though they are already developed. And I just wanted to make you aware of that we had that conversation. Both Nate and I agreed and conveyed that to the Lancaster County Planning Commission. So
You expressed what I would express at this point.
we heard it.
So what exactly were they requesting? Can you put that in different language? You know, you said added to the urban growth boundary, like what would?
So our current urban growth boundary is the dark green area. Outside of the urban growth boundary is the lighter, I see green, lighter area, which is where development is not projected or supported. So when a developer comes in, he's gonna look at the urban growth boundaries to develop. These two areas are not as important because they're already developed, but still.
Yeah, so why would they ask to add it when it has no impact?
With Bent Creek, it's the backside of Manhattan Township, which is in the urban growth boundary. So they have half the development in, half of it out. And Chadwick is kind of an island unto itself. It's a group of homes that were put in, but they were in fact outside of the growth boundary when they were done.
Are there any parcels in where they added that would then be eligible for development?
They didn't add anything.
I know they did,
Oh.
but what they were proposing. I guess
It was just
I'm
these two
actually
areas.
grateful not to see the whole area, because
Right,
that's what I had envisioned when you first said that, but.
No.
I know part of Bent Creek is in East Hempfield Township, there's a small sliver. Is it just the homes that are already there, or is there like adjacent land that they were trying to add that could be developed in the future?
I think that we would have to define what that looked like, but there is some land up there that had some pressure on it to develop. I think the horse farm is on the backside of that, Bent Creek.
Happy with your answer.
And the further we move in that growth boundary, the more land that then is adjacent to it and more pressure then occurs. So we figured, no, we're gonna leave it exactly where it is, no change. The Church and Knowles Park, I'm still waiting for the GSL agreement to be finalized. I'm gonna have to reach out to him and Susan and have a conversation and get that going. We're talking about the draft budget. There's really not a whole lot going on in terms of stormwater projects. We discussed the Nistley Basin. And that concludes my report unless there's questions.
On the GSL agreement. Do we have, are there issues that we're working through?
What we want to do is fine tune the term of what they would do for us. And I gave her parameters based on Mr. Russell's discussion at a couple meetings ago. And she has just apparently been overwhelmed with work and has not finalized that.
But it just seems like it's taking longer than it should.
It is, it has.
I'm guilty with her workload a little bit with another township, so just for the record.
Yeah, so I think I will reach out to our representative, can't think of his name, his first name is Nick. And have a conversation with him, see if we can develop wording and have her review it, which might.
I think that might speed things up a little bit, because she's got about 50 properties and she's looking at right now.
So the RCAP has not opened up yet for the next round of funding, so we still have time. But that would be the primary source that we'd be looking at.
I just don't want to run out of time. I know you don't either.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Any other comments on the manager's report this evening?
No.
Okay, hearing and seeing none. That brings us to adjournment. Any other issues for the good of the cause? So hearing none, I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:58. The chief.
Yes, sir.
We wrote that original.
Probably Bill Watt.
Because it was very well written.
Was it? Yeah.
It was a 2 page,
I appreciate it.
it was a whole page on the first house on the front page and then with the page 3.
Yeah, Bill and Rich Bauermaster are the men in charge of that